All right, so let's get started. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining from. Welcome to Data Driven Community Virtual Meetup user group, right? So a few words about Data Driven Community. If you have to check the community website, then you can notice we are managing two branches of activities. Scroll down to the page a little bit, see the upcoming events. And one on the left side of the page, you can notice the Future Data Driven Summit. Future Data Driven Summit 2025 is coming to you on September 24th, 2025. We are very excited to it. We started planning for it. So it's an annual joint conference we are leading and running with multiple data platform user group partners. So this is like a huge drumroll announcement that I would like to give. Future Data Driven Summit 2025 is going to happen on September 24th, 2025. Our call for speakers is currently open until May 10th, 2025. So hurry up. We are looking forward to see your submissions. Registration is also open. We have two different QR codes on the screen, one for the call for speakers and the other one is for registration. So save the date and register for the event so you don't miss the date. The second branch of the activity are our weekly meetings of the Cloud Data Driven User Group like we are having today. And meanwhile, I would like to also mention that our upcoming presentation is our speaker is Lakshmi Ponnurasan. If you see like underneath the Cloud Data Driven, discover Powerops Desktop, your free Power BI Sidekick. So we are looking forward to host that presentation as well. So if you did not register, please go ahead to the website. I will provide you all the details in the chat window later. So yeah. You are more than welcome to contact any of the board member here. Joseph is the founder and the co-administrator. Ronen is the second co-admin and Anna Weiss is the third moderator. And myself, I am Deepti Koguri. I'm a database administrator as well as a data platform MVP. I'm a third co-admin of the data-driven community. And also I'll be hosting today's session. Together, we are here to help and serve the data platform community. During the meeting today, please feel free to use the chat for any questions, discussions as well. And you are more than welcome to use any reactions. It doesn't interfere with the course of the meeting. And if you hear something which you love, like, or you want to clap hands, please feel free to do so. Today, we are very much honored to have Javier with us. Javier is a IT director for the DBA and BI services department at Mediterranean Shipping Company with 30 years of experience. Wow. With 30 years of working experience with SQL Server, including SQL, and his specialization is on administration, performance tuning, all good things out there, high availability and disaster recovery. Oh my God, you have a lot of experience, Javier. And Javier is also, of course, he is a Microsoft MVP for the data platform since 2016 and MCT as well, which is Microsoft Certified Trainer. So he's super expert in what he's talking today. So Javier, can you please share a little bit more about you? And also, I'm looking forward to listen from you. So you can go ahead and share your screen.
Okay, thank you so much, Diti, for the invitation and the introduction. I'm so honored to be here today. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, absolutely. We are seeing your screen.
Okay, as I was saying, I'm really glad to be here spending some time together with you and the community. This community that I love is one of the first community that I was able to speak for many years ago. Right? So every time I have a possibility to present a session, and when I believe that there is something useful to share, well, definitely this is one of the places I normally go. So let's start. Today we're going to talk about technology that I love a lot, which is called extended events, right? extended event is something that is super cool to do some sort of troubleshooting and diagnostic problems and several situations in SQL and Azure SQL, right? And it happened to me that when I talk with different people in community, DBAs, etc., they don't know much about extended event. Even that they ask me what is all about. Is this new in SQL Server 2022? And let me tell you that is quite old. This technology is since SQL Server 2008. So the name of this presentation is Troubleshooting Azure SQL and SQL Server using Extended Event. We will see that in most of the cases, we can use and adjust the scripts that we're going to be presenting later on the demos. By the way, this is going to be just few slides and then full demo. We can very easily adjust those scripts and run this on managed instance, Azure SQL DB, or any flavor of SQL Server, right? The introduction was already done, just a few things. Javier Villegas from Buenos Aires, Argentina. You have my contact information here, my email address, my Twitter, my LinkedIn handle. So if you have any questions related to this presentation, please reach out to me from these channels. I like to answer and be as active as possible. So please let's engage on the conversation afterward. I'm also one of the organizers of our local community here, SQL Argentina. We normally speak Spanish. So if we have any Spanish speaker that would like to join us, I just extend the invitation. Right? We have our monthly show online, so that where we talk with some friends and colleagues about data platform. So let's start with extended event. This is a little bit of our agenda. Try to move from this point onward to see the point that we would like to cover today. First of all, we will try to see what is extended event actually, right? Then we will go through the key features of extended events. We will see how they work, right? We will also dig into some use cases, right? Because then when we go through the presentation, we will see what is exactly the extended event and what we're trying to enhance, or what I would like to say is replace, right, from an old technology that is still around, but I won't mention it yet, right? And then the idea is go deeper and see extended event in action as much as possible. We will try to go through several demos and cover some of the scenarios that I have for you to present to you today. Right? And at the end, we're going to do a quick summary and catch up to what we see today. And at the end, we will have time for questions. Right? I will back my presentation and the scripts. I will put it in my personal GitHub, and I will share the link to you later, so you can go and download the scripts and use it yourself for your own environment. So let's move on. What is extended event? First of all, and super important, right? What I like to emphasize a lot is that it's a lightweight, and this is a super important word, performance monitoring and troubleshooting framework. It's not a tool, it's not an application, it's a framework, right? That allow us to collect detailed event data about SQL Server engine activity, also Azure SQL, right? Let's let's try to remark some of the words in this phrase. First of all, lightweight performance monitoring and troubleshooting framework. So what do we use mainly to do troubleshooting? Most of the DBAs, when we see that there is a performance problem or someone calls us, hey, my process is running slow, what do we do mainly? Well, basically we open a tool which is called Profiler. Profiler has been around since I was around with the databases. By the way, my first database engine was SQL Server 6.0, right? And Profiler was in there, right? In SQL Server 2008, Microsoft has released this framework called Extended Event, right? Which is, again, lightweight, right? To replace Profiler, right? Why replace Profiler? Well, I know you've been through this situation before, right? In some cases, when your server is having big troubles of performance or something is definitely not going well, right? There are some cases, I would say more than 50%, that when we open Profiler to try to understand and troubleshoot what's going on, we ended up adding more problems to the situation than actually getting an actual diagnostic information, right? If we don't put the right filters in Profilers, if we, are not too much experienced and we try to capture too many columns, too many events, again, the end result is that we're going to add more and more noise into the problem, and definitely it will be way, way more difficult to troubleshoot our problem, right? I'm telling you this because of many personal experiences, right? It happened to me more than once, right? That maybe you're troubleshooting something, you open Profiler, and you don't specify your filters or your predicates accurately. So you start capturing a lot of things. And then maybe you go home and you forget to close your computer and Profiler stay running. So it definitely add more workload to your database, right? So being a lightweight performance monitoring and troubleshooting framework is basically what Microsoft was trying to recover, to achieve back when they introduced Extended Event, right? Let me tell you that at the very beginning, Extended Event was super powerful, definitely, right? But there was no user interface, right? Everything that we had to do in order to work with Extended Event, and then we will go deeper on this work with Extended Event means, right? Was through a T-SQL session, right? So create the Extended Event session, query the output, and everything was totally through T-SQL. Nowadays, with the modern versions of SQL Server, and also, of course, with Management Studio, right, we have the possibility of consuming all this information way, way easier. It's super simple. And you will see that in some cases, there is a big parallelism between Profiler and Extended Event, right? It's super important also to mention that this is designed to help on the diagnostic and troubleshooting, right? It's not going to fix the problem. It will give you, right, the details on which are the statements that maybe are generating error messages, or maybe taking longer, or maybe locking or deadlocking, or something like that, right? So super important to mention that it's not the solution. It's just the tool, right? The framework to do the diagnostic, right? You can ask me, Javier, I still installing SQL Server 2022, and I have Profiler in Management Studio. Why we have these two things, right? There's still Profiler around. while we also have extended event. Well, let me tell you that SQL Profiler is discontinued, right? So what discontinue mean is that they are not investing anymore in Profiler, right? So no new features, right? But they are still distributing, right? On the other hand, they are doing all the investment in extended event. And what does it mean? Well, for example, if we have a new feature in SQL Server, right? For example, let's say availability groups. It's not that new, right? But we have availability groups and distribute availability groups, right? With Profiler, we don't have any event related to availability groups, right? Because again, it's recent, right? It's not super new, but it's quite recent, right? And then if we would like to troubleshoot an availability group with extended events, we have a very detailed set of actions and events that we can do, right? So every SQL Server version, every major SQL Server version that Microsoft released, there are new features, right? And for those new features, we may need to do some troubleshooting, right? And if we use Profiler, definitely we won't have the details to do that. And we have to use extended event, right? Still, Profiler is useful for some things that, again, is possible. Everything that we do in Profiler is possible with extended event, right? But remember what I said at the beginning, it's very lightweight, right? So minimum impact on the performance. And as I mentioned, available in SQL since SQL Server 2008, right? Azure SQL database and managed instance, right? So some key features of extended event. First of all, low overhead, right? Again, this is, I would say, the most important thing if you compare with Profiler, right? Resource usage is minimum, right? So definitely when we need to do this troubleshooting in an environment that is under pressure, definitely we're going to add some overhead, right? But it's going to be minimum, right? It's super flexible, right? In terms of event capture, right? You will see when we go through the demo that there are a lot of events that we can go through, right? Query execution duration, query execution times, errors, deadlocks, waits, everything you need to do a proper troubleshooting. In fact, what is really powerful here is basically the filtering, right? How we can narrow down with those filters to basically go into what we are definitely looking at, right? So filtering is super important. And then we will see this concept of targeting. Where are we sending the output of what extended event is capturing, right? And first of all, what we capture, right, is definitely a lot of data, so rich event data, right? So we will definitely see that for every single event that we get, we can get, the CPU usage, the memory consumption, status of the statistic, the SQL statement that is involved, query plans that are currently in use for a specific session, and so on and so forth, right? So super detailed information. Some of this information is in Profiler, right? I know, but again, it's super heavy when we try to retrieve an execution plan from Profiler, for example, right? So that is one of the things that I will never, ever try to do it with Profiler, retrieve an execution plan, right? So let's see some of the key feature of extended event, right? First of all, it's fully integrated with Management Studio, right? As I mentioned briefly at the beginning, before we still have the possibility to work directly with T-SQL, right? But now it's fully integrated with Management Studio. In fact, when we download Management Studio, right? Profiler comes with this, right? Now we have a very rich user interface that will help us to create extended event session, select the events that we want to capture, do the filtering, and select the target in where we're going to send the output. Right? As I mentioned more than once by now, is the replacement of the SQL traces and SQL profiler, right? Because of the things that we've been mentioning till now. How do they work, right? So, first of all, let's dig into the component of an extended event. First of all, we have the event, right? The event is a specific occurrence of something in particular, right? For example, a query is being executed, a deadlock is happening, an error is raised, right? That is the let's say, the atom, the event. Then we have a session. A session is what we will be creating, right, with a collections of events that we would like to capture, right, to get our monitoring strategy, right? And we can configure this session depending on the events that we need to select, right? Depending on the troubleshooting scenario that we are after, right? Then we have the target. The target is mainly the destination of the output captured by a session, right? So this could be a file in a storage, right? It could be the memory, right? We call it ring buffer, right? And there are some other outputs that we're gonna dig into later on, right? And finally, we have what is called actions and predicates, right? Actions are mainly the thing that will allow us to collect more information, right, when a specific event occurs. You will notice some parity in some cases with Profiler, right? If you remember, in Profiler, you have each of the columns for each of the events that you wanted to capture, right? Well, those are these columns. So let's say that when I'm collecting long-running statement, I don't care about, for example, from when the session is coming from. I'm only caring on the start time, the end time, and maybe the reads, right? Those are the actions that I will be selecting. And the predicate, which is super important, right, is basically the filters, right? Let's say if I start a extended event session, I say, okay, give me everything that is happening on this specific database, on this set of store procedure or object, coming from this session. If there are deadlock involving this or that object, right? So the filter is what will allow us to do the granularity, right? In some scenarios, we may need to do let's say, this monitoring for an extended period of time, meaning that, taking the advantage that this is lightweight, right? Again, lightweight doesn't mean no load. It's minimum or low load, right? There is some load. So, but eventually, if we need to take an action like, for example, create an extended event to capture events for 24 hours, right? We can do it, and we will try to dig into that in a moment. So here we have an example of an extended event, an actual extended event session, right? That we will go through then in the demo. So why don't we dig into each of the components of the extended event, right? First of all, we have the session, right? We name the session as the collection of events that we would like to capture. So we're gonna specify a name. In this case, this specific session will collect every SQL Server error raised within the engine, right? So let's say that you have a store procedure which has some syntax error, or maybe an object it doesn't exist, or you're trying to reference a column that doesn't exist, or any kind of error, right? So this one will tell us that we select the event SQL Server error reporting, right? If you see, this is quite similar to Profiler. So we create the session SQL text and errors, right? We choose the action, the event, right? Error reported, and then we have the target, right? As you can see here, we are targeting to a file in our file system, right? So in this case, we also have a parameter in where the maximum file size is 4,000 megabytes. So every time that we reach that number, it's going to create another file, right? And then, of course, we have the predicate, right? In this case, I have actually the actions and the predicate. If you see, we have the name of what we would like to get as an output. The application name, the client host name, the database ID, the SQL text that is generating the error, the stacks, and the username, right? And under the predicate, I say, I don't care about these specific error messages, right? So for these specific error numbers, please do not capture anything, right? Remember, in Profiler, we have kind of the same way of working, right? We select, and then we try to filter, right? This is exactly the same thing, right? Note something important at the top when we create the session, right? Create event session name on server, right? What does it mean on server? That for every database, for everything that happened on my instance, the whole instance, this session will be capturing, right? So we specified for the whole instance. This is more or less the way to work on SQL Server, right? Instead, if we want to do something like this in an Azure SQL database, right, we have two different things that we need to note and take different actions, right? First of all, the destination in Azure SQL DB could not be the local drive. Why? Because it's a managed service, right? So we don't have the possibility to access to the C drive, D drive, whatever. So what do we do in that case? Well, we specify a storage account, right? A container, and we send the output to a storage account, right? So the file will go there, will be created there with absolutely no problem, right? But it's going to be on a remote storage, right? The other thing to note here is that in Azure SQL database, remember, we have this concept of logical server to group all the Azure SQL databases. So we don't have a way to create an extended event session for all the Azure SQL database. We have to create it per database, right? So if you note here at the top, right, I'm specifying that this specific extended event session is for the database I am on right now, right? So those are the two main differences when we create any kind of extended event session, right, in Azure SQL database, right? In this case, also could be managed instance as well, right? So we have to specify the output to, or the target to an storage account, right? To a container that we have to pre-create, and also have the credential and the certificate created to have the rights to write on it, right? And instead of creating the extended event session at server level, it has to be at database level. Super important to remember. So some of the use cases, right? First of all, most important, troubleshooting performance issue, right? Long-running queries, errors, high CPU or memory usage, high writes, slow operation, you name it, right? When you receive that phone call saying my report is running slow, my users are complaining that the application is running slow, right? We need to start digging into what's going on, definitely extended event is the right way to do it, right? So troubleshooting any kind of performance issue is the #1 use case for extended event. Deadlock analysis, right? We are in a deadlock situation in where we have one session that is locking and ended up deadlocking another session or multiple other sessions, right? When a deadlock event happens, what extended event collect if we have a session enabled, right? It's going to grab all the information related to the deadlock information. So we will see the speed and the object, and in some cases also the text that is involved in the deadlock. Error monitoring, right? As I mentioned, if there is something raising any kind of errors within SQL, we can capture it and we will see it in a minute, right? And for example, resource weight, any kind of resource weight, right? If we have weights at CPU memory or storage I/O level, right, we can also use it. So why extended event, right? Because we have better performance, period, right? Lower overhead compared with SQL profiler. That is the #1 reason of why to use extended event. More granularity than before. We can monitor just what we need with any specific filtering or predicate, right? We can customize it as much as possible. We will see that we have a lot of possibilities in this area, right? And will definitely help us to do our troubleshooting process in real time, right? So we can grab the information as soon as it's happening. We can see it, we can analyze it, and we need to, of course, read it properly to be able to take an action to solve the problem that we are in that particular moment, right? Very good. So why don't we see this in action? By the way, is there any question at this point before we dig into the demo? Somebody may have a question. Feel free to unmute and talk if you want.
I don't see any questions, Javier. I think we can go ahead.
Okay. Very good. All right. So okay, I'm connected to my virtual machine. This virtual machine is running SQL Server 2022, right, here at the top. And we also have an Azure SQL database, right? This is the logical server, and if we expand the databases, we're going to get the list of databases. All right, so let's go to the first use case. This is the use case in where we gonna retrieve the SQL Server errors, right? So what I'm doing here at the beginning is basically dropping everything, right? From there is something that was running before, so no. So here, what I have is a similar example than the one that we just saw in the slide, right? So we're creating the extended event demo session, sorry. Let me actually open it in a new session so you can see with the proper coloring. So we are creating the extended event session named SQL text and errors. We are specifying that the event is SQL error reported, right? And we get, the action that we mentioned before. And in this case, we're going to be filtering some error numbers, right? We can also filter by the error text, right? For example, if we don't want to show up the errors which are related to a specific, that include a specific word, we can do it in there. Then, we set the target. In this case, we're going to set it to a folder and a file within our local system. And here we have some startup parameters in order to make it even lighter, right? And this is based on the documentation. When we create the session, it's going to be created, but it's not going to be started, right? So we can specify as one of the parameters the startup state, right? So if we want that, when this instance gets restarted, that the event, the extended event session is up, we need to specify it in here. But when we create it for the first time, it's going to be not run. So we just created, right? What do we do now? Well, first of all, we will go to here, management. Under management, we have extended event and we have session. As you can see here, there are a bunch of sessions that are on my server, right? The one that has the red box are there but are not running. The one with the green triangle are the ones that are running, right? You will see in your environment that system health, and in some cases, if you have telemetry enabled, telemetry X events are always enabled because they are system, right? So Microsoft collects some information here when you open a ticket, for example, a support incident, they go through this session, right? So in this case, I have my user one created SQL errors, SQL text and error, and now I will start. I can start it like this, alter event session on server state start, or I can just come here and hit start session, right? When we hit the start session, now it's running. So good. Let me close this one. So now the SQL Server is here, and we can, we are already collecting SQL error messages, right? So let's generate some error messages. For example, I will switch to a database that doesn't exist, right? Okay, I get an error message. I have here some errors, like, for example, syntax error, right? Instead of use, I just type something different. So I will here create a new database, right? And we have this error. The database already exists. All these are different kind of error messages, right? Then we can do a division by zero. Finally, we can also try to create a table also with a syntax, right? We can also, for example, drop a procedure, in this case, that doesn't exist. But then I can create a procedure here, which has two errors, actually, right? The division by zero and the three errors, actually. And select top 10 from a table that doesn't exist, and then trying to execute a store procedure that doesn't exist. Right? So I can create a procedure with absolutely no problem. I have the warning saying that this store procedure doesn't exist, the one that I'm trying to call, right? Non-existing store procedure. And then what I'm doing here is executing my store procedure 50 times, right? So we are running SQL Server Management Studio. That is why we see the error messages popping up through the user interface, right? But let's imagine that you have a new version of your application. Your development team has pushed a new build of this specific application. And for some reason, it may have some errors, like, for example, it's trying to reference a new column that was not created at database level, right? So from the application point of view, depending on how the error is handled, right, we cannot even see what's going on, right? But behind the scenes, SQL Server is generating all these errors. So one of my use cases is basically when, most of the time, this is running 100% in all my servers, and once a day I do the collection and I send it to a physical table, right, to then further analysis, right? But I pay attention to this more than often when we do a release of a new version of our application, right? So when we have a new release, the next few minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, we can catch up all the errors that are popping up. All right, so we just generate the error here. So what can we do here? So if we go down, right, I just generate another script. Then basically what it's doing is getting the data from the extended event session. Let me go a minute to my file explorer. And in my file explorer, if you remember, I create the extended event session with the name error into the DEX event folder. So I have the file, which is here, and every single thing that we capture here is going to this file. All right. So what I'm doing with this script, I'm just creating a table. By the way, that file is basically using an XML format, right? So what we will be doing here is basically parse this XML and put all the columns into a table so we can easily read it, all right? So what I'm doing here is creating the table. I'm also specifying an index here, creating an index to be able to query my table faster. All right. So I have my table, and then these are dynamic management functions, or just functions that will help us to read from the extended event session, right? master.sys.fn.exe file target read file. We have to specify the path and few other parameters that we get here, right? So basically, what I'm doing is I have to run this in all in one. So as you can see, now we have in a table format some sort of output that we catch it before. First of all, it's giving to me the number of errors that we have since the session was first started, right? We have 113, right? Know that, for example, if I go back to my script, or if I go here and generate another syntax error, right? I generate another error. I rerun my script here, and now I have an additional. I have actually more than one, because most probably there are other things running behind the scene. Right? So this is live. Is every time that there is an error, right? We just run this. It's reading the file and putting the information in here. And what do we have here? Well, first of all, when was the time of the event, right? The error message, right, with the error number, right? And here we have the SQL statement that raised that particular error message. And what is also important here, we have the object ID. In this case, it's not an object because it was ad hoc query, right? We have the username and the application name and the host name that generated that error. And we have the same thing for every single error that I generate on board, right? So, for example, we have here, all the ones executed by when I executed 50 times the store procedure, right? So let's say with all this information we know, and if we go down here with more details, we also have the number of times in where we got a specific error, right? So remember that we executed the store procedure 50 times. right? So these specific error messages came 50 times, right? So with that, we know, oh, this application is running, is generating trouble. Which user, which application name, and which host name is calling that specific procedure, so we can take an action right away, right? So that is extended event, and this is the powerful of extended event. And again, we run it one more time, and we get the output live, right? So the file is there, the file is being populated. So everything we need to do here, we can get it in real time. All right. So the difference that we have with Azure SQL Database, right, is that first of all, we have to create a master key. This is basically to be able to write to the storage account. Then we create a database scope credential, right, pointing to my storage account, right? We have to specify the credential itself, which is the shared access signature that is coming from my extended event, right? And then, as I show you in the slide, when we create the session, we have to point it to database level, and the output will go to the extended event, right? So in this case, we have the same example that we saw before for the SQL errors, but for Azure SQL Data, right? So that's the first demo. So let me just close this one, so we go to the next one, which is deadlock information, right? So here, remember that I mentioned that we have this session called system health, right? Which is running all the time. We didn't have to create it manually. It's always there, and it's always saving some minimum diagnostic information into the ring buffer, right? So one of these events that is capturing is deadlock information by itself. So we can query, right, the memory and get if there are deadlocks, right? In this case, there are no deadlocks. We're going to try to generate them manually, right? So let's leave aside the system health, right? As you can see, this is a simple XML query, right? To grab the data from the memory, right? And retrieve it and get the deadlock information. But let's do it more readable, right? For that, what I'm going to do is I will create my brand new session. I will clean up everything that we have. I will create a new session. As you can see, I call it deadlock on server, where the event is XML deadlock, sending the file to the same location with the same parameters. So what I'm doing here is just creating the session and starting it, right? If I come back here, now my deadlock, which was not running, now is running, right? So one important thing to mention is that for both, or for any of the extended event session, we still have the user interface. So we can come here to session, right click, and we have a wizard that will help us and will guide through all the process to create the extended event session. We will do one later on, right? So now it's capturing deadlock information. If I go back to my drive, I see now that there is a file called deadlock, right? So what do we do here? Let's create a new, let's imagine we have a deadlock situation, right? So let me pull off my files here. So what we have here is the most standard example to generate and raise deadlock. So I will create two tables and will insert one row on each of them. Then I will open a transaction and we'll do an update of one of those columns. I will now go to another session, right? And I will open another transaction without committing or rolling back. And when I go back to the first session, if I try to do another update, I should get the deadlock situation, right? So here is a simple deadlock, right? So nothing fancy. We just simulate, we just raise an error based on two simple tables. If I go here, I can go grab the information of my deadlock. So, but in this particular case, what I want to show you is that we have the possibility to go to the user interface, right? If we do right click, we see that is sending the target to the file. So what we can do here is right click, view target data, right? And if you don't know how to parse XML information or those kind of things, you have all the information you need here. You come here to the event, right? And you definitely have all you need in here. You can see, you know, which was the killer, which was the root, which was the kill session, and so on and so forth. Right? So we have here all the statements that were involved in the objects, eventually if there are indexes, etc., etc. So you can leave this running behind the scene all the time, and you can grab information related to your deadlock at any time. Right? So it's important to mention that you won't see live event here. It's going to just capture the ones that are in the file. It's like taking a picture of what's in the file right now. So if there are new events, you won't see them here, right? That is because we just came here and we did on the target, view target data. But if we go, for example, to the one that we create earlier, SQL text and error, and we go through the session itself, and we do right click and watch live data, right? It will definitely show us the errors as they happen. I will generate an error message here, and as you can see, we saw it right after here. Right? We have the SQL text, the severity, and all the information that we got. This is actually the God of the XML file. If I go here and generate another error message, let's say select star from this to, I have another entry here, right? So with this one, we can see the event happening live, right? So super cool. So if you, as I said, if you are not familiar with how to parse XML, you can do it with the user interface with absolutely no problem. Okay, so let's close this one. Close the open transactions, as you know. Then we can have long-running state, right? This is the one I like the most, right? For example, if in this case, what I'm doing is, see, I will come here to the one that is long running. This one. So here I will clean up everything. Okay, so what I will do here is create an extended event session, right? But summit long running 5 seconds, right? So this one will actually capture everything that is taking 5 seconds or more, right? Well, actually about 5 seconds. As you can see here, right, in the predicate, we cannot put 5. For a second, we have to multiply, right, by 1,000,000. So these are microseconds, right? But we capture multiple events, RPC complete, statement complete, SQL batch complete, and SQL statement complete, right? And for each of them, we specify all the actions, so meaning what we would like to grab, right? And we put some filter, right? Of course, the 5 seconds, and I don't want to get long-running sessions coming from the operating system, right? And then, as usual, we send it to a target in a file, and then we start the session. So let's create this. Now we'll refresh all our sessions. We have here my session. So what we're going to do here is we're going to watch them live, right? So for every single statement running on my SQL server, we're going to get it, that are taking more than 5 seconds, we're going to get this. As you can see, I have the file now, the long-running 5, right, also being created. So I don't see much here, but if I go and get, this is a sample workload that will execute activity, and some of these activities will take more than 5 seconds, right? So I can also just do something better. I will cancel this. I will open an external application, in this case, the SQL stress query, right? I will connect to my database server. I will choose one database which I believe is virtual works. Disconnection, okay. I will put my query here, and I will run 10 iterations of 3 threads each. So now it's running, and as soon as one of the statements start taking over 5 seconds, right, we should grab an entry here. The simple one is just to put a wait, right? But no, looks like my database engine is running quite fast today, so it's been able to process. So what we can do instead is, okay, no, now we're going to at least something, right? Now let me minimize this. So I have the statements that are taking more than 5 seconds, right? And how long are they taking? And we have here in the event here the duration also in Microsoft. This one is taking 6.9 seconds, right? And we have the T-SQL query if we need it here, and so on and so forth. So everything that is running on my server that is taking 5 seconds is going to be here, and we're going to be able to see it and use it for troubleshooting, right? So super cool when we are troubleshooting long-running state. So another thing that we normally would like to track is when the database size change, meaning that either the data file or the log file grows or shrink eventually, right? Why? Because we don't want to have these changes on the database files during the business day, right? So we prefer to make bigger growth, but in less amount of less execution than multiple growths within the day, right? So if we would like to track all that, what we do is we create a new session, right? And we will track again database size for file and for log. And we start my session here. So if we come here, we refresh, I see now my session DB tracking size change. All right. So we come down here, and what I'm going to do is just make it grow. All right. So we come here on. So I'm creating a brand new, let's see it this way with watch live data. So come here, I come here, I'm creating a brand new empty database called testDB, right? So I will create it with some parameters on the file. This is just creating a database, right? Nothing fancy. And say that it already exists. So let me start over because most probably it's already big. Okay. So what I will do next is basically create a table, right, with some indexes and then do a loop with an insert, right? So it should be dropping the testDB database here. Well, now it's not. Okay, so let me stop this guy. One is definitely heavy. So database is created. I create a table. I create few dummy indexes. So now I start looping on this one. And when we go here, we see that first of all, we are not only capturing database grow or shrink. We are also tracking database creation, index creation, and in this case, file size change. Right. So it took 0.1 second here, and it tells you the amount of kilobyte that the file size changed. In this case, 512 kilobyte, right? And now the new size is this one. So if we do again another close this guy, if we continue doing this, we're gonna see more growth in this one, right? So now the file changed again by another 512 kilobyte, and now the new size is this, right? With that, we can track at which and exactly what time the file change, right? Because of a grow or a shrink, right? And as you can see, if we want to track when a database was created or when an index was created, modified, or deleted, we can also do it this way, right? So we go back to the extended event session, and now we're going to go to properties, right? And under the properties, we will see everything that we've been doing with T-SQL. We will see it in here, right? The name, right? The event, in this case, create index, database creation, and data file size change, right? The target, right, which is the file, and then the extra parameters that I add are here, right? And that's it, right? Super simple to create an extended event session. So then there are other interesting things to track. For example, one of the new features that, or a recent feature that we have, and definitely we cannot do much with Profiler with that, right, is max DOP feedback, right? In the latest SQL Server version, right? We have all those features with, of course, with query store, with automatic query tuning, and so on and so forth, right? So we have one which is CE feedback. What CE feedback is, right? Every time that a store procedure or session is being executed, right? What SQL Server Engine is doing behind the scene is evaluating if maybe there is a possibility to specify a hint, right, to improve the execution, right? So, in the past, before having CE feedback available, What we had to do is basically monitor our database for any possibility of maybe choosing a hint, right? One of the available hints, put it there, recompile the store procedure, and execute it again, and then see if the new execution with the hint is better or not than the previous one, right? In SQL Server 2022, right, after executing the store procedure like 15 times, it automatically will identify there is a room for improvement with one of the hints. It will try it with the hint, right? It will put the hint by ourselves, right? Sorry, but by itself. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to modify any code or recompile any procedure or anything. It was just, you know, for us, right? And then we'll execute it again. And after the execution, it will compare whether the new execution is faster or not. And if it is, it will leave the hint available, right? I won't run this one, right, because it's going to take some time to do the preparation. But what I would like to show you here is that every time that SQL Server Engine come up with a recommendation for a hint to be added automatically, right? It will do it, of course, because the feature is enabled if we decide it, right? But it will raise an event that can be captured and consumed through extended event, right? So here the session name is CE feedback, right? And see the event is query feedback analysis, right? For if it's find a candidate to specify a hint. Then the feedback validation is after the hint is sent it to the query, right, and execute it just to confirm whether it is better or not. And here we're going to have all the information. So let me see. No, I don't have anyone save it, but it's super cool because not only for CE feedback, then we have max DOP feedback and many others, right? Which, by the way, I will tell you to explore all the possibilities here. So go into new session wizard, right? And maybe exploring all the ones that you want, right? So I put here a name, and then you can start from a clean one, or there are some templates. This is quite similar to what we used to see with Profile. There are some predefined template. I will start here with a clean one, right? And then we have all this list of events instead of the event library that we can choose. It's interesting because we have some categories here, right? So we have optimization, we have automatic tuning, we have some related to backup restore, to service broker, to change data capture, and so on and so forth. So we can filter the one we want, right? And as you can see, the list is quite large, right? All right, so we just passed a few minutes the time, so sorry about that. We are just finishing. Let me go back to my slide. All right, just for closing, right? As a quick summary, right? Extended event, as you have seen today, is powerful and efficient, right? It's a framework in SQL Server and Azure SQL, which capture performance information in very detailed way, right? Will help us to do any kind of troubleshooting, right? We can go back to SQL Server 2008 until the latest 2022 plus managed instance and Azure SQL DB and get any insight on our database and our instance activities if we need to do diagnostic and troubleshooting on our environment. And with that, we just finished the presentation. Again, sorry it took a few more minutes of your time. Leave you one more time my contact information. Any question that you may have, reach me out through social media or email, and I will be happy to engage and answer your questions. So Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Javier. This is amazing. I mean, um, I have to definitely go back and look into the presentations. I always say this to each and every presenter because I'm not a very fast learner. I have to at least listen twice to get the content as much as possible. So there is one question from Steve here. So he asks, this is a great thing to have running during software updates, maybe all of the day one to catch any mismatches between the code and the schema. Is there a noticeable overhead that impacts performance? Maybe limiting to just API system accounts.
I mean, again, it's lightweight, but it's not for free, let's say. I will say that if you put Profiler to get all the SQL Server errors with no, let's say, filter versus extended event, you will notice the difference, especially if there are many events popping up. In my case, and this is a real use case, we have in production environment the same session that I just showed you with all those exceptions for specific error numbers, sorry, which are, for example, related to statistics or backups or those kind of things that, you know, I know that they may happen, but I don't care to capture, right? So to me, I will say it's not a problem, especially the SQL Server, the errors, right? Also, the long-running queries is an interesting one, right? I won't say you to get everything that is taking over 5 seconds, but eventually, if you have an OLTP environment in where, you know, in theory, your transaction should be lightning fast, right? Maybe you put stuff that you put a filter that grab everything that is running for over a minute, right? You will get a good picture of what you need to pass to your developers to make so much shot.
Awesome.
I see another question for Profiler. We need to have alter trace permission for extended event. What kind of access do we need? Server role, right? Server access role. So, you know, the alter trace permission is basically if you want to run Profiler in background, let's say, right? Generate the SQL traces, right? Which is Profiler, but without the user interface, right? You have you need to have you know, pretty high level of access here. Which target types are preferred for ad hoc session prod in critical scenario? Okay, in my case, the one that I prefer, you have the ring buffer, right? Which is memory, the limit of you can specify an amount of memory to use for the ring buffer. The problem with the ring buffer is that it's circular, right? As soon as it gets full, it's gonna start deleting the oldest one, right? So if you have a fast storage system, I will definitely encourage you to use the file target, right? Actually, that's the one I'm using, the files.
There is also another question. It says, hi, sir. How about the default extended event system health? It's not enough to investigate the issue. So need to create one with better parameters.
How about the no, it's not. I mean, to solve something basic, like for example, if your system is running on pressure, low memory, something like that, or if you are getting too many deadlocks, those kind of things, that is enough, right? Again, this is basically it's being used, but some third-party monitoring tools, definitely, right? It's also used when Microsoft, as I said earlier, when you open a support ticket, right, Microsoft will try to dig into this to at least have the first picture of what's going on, or what happened when the problem raised, right? Because maybe the problem is gone now, but you know you kept all this information in there, right? So I will definitely not encourage you to modify the default one, right? If you want to create one or to dig into something in particular more deeply for your use case, create your user session, right? Do not touch the default one, the system hub. Hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah,
and if I remember correctly, I believe you can't modify the system hub.
Awesome. I don't see any more questions coming in. And yeah, thank you so much. And I really appreciate for taking your time to present a 1 hour, more than 1 hour, 75-minute presentations for us today. I would love to see your presentations coming in for the Future Data Driven Summit, as well as for the user group as well. And for all the audience, like we are coming up in the next week, we are coming up with another session related to Power BI. I mentioned the details here. If you did not sign up here, I'm providing the link again in the chat window. Do not forget to register. We come up with weekly meetings from the experts across the community. So yeah, please feel free to click on the link and join the user group as well as our YouTube channel. If you miss one of or any of the sessions, you can directly go ahead and re-watch the recordings, because I'm 100% sure that if you are watching it one time, you definitely have to watch another time to grab and then remember what you have actually listened for the first time. So I am that kind of a person. So so yeah, so I'm really thankful to you, Javier. This is a wonderful session. Yeah. And yeah, if you anyone of you do not have any more questions, we will wrap this up for today, and we will see you in the next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deputy. Thank you, everyone. Happy to be here, and well, we talk later. Goodbye.
Have a great weekend, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.